Emeritus Ekwe Thuro was present when we were making the Constitution. My good friend, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, and I'm happy that one of the delegates at the Bomas of Kenya, delegate number 321, is present with us. And many of us sometimes forget why it is that we agitated for a new constitutional dispensation. The older people here will remember that when we regained our independence, the constitution that we inherited, if you may, was actually enacted by the British Parliament as Act number 1968 of 1963. It was not meant for our societies, not the Turkana, not the Kamba, not the Jaluos, not the Samburus. This was a constitution to cater for a post-colonial country and to be in the image of a post-colonial country. You must never forget that when the British were leaving, they were giving constitutions to their former colonies. So that when you look at the character of the Kenyan constitution, the Ugandan constitution, the Tanganyikan constitution, the Malawian constitution, the Zambian constitution, the Ghanaian constitution, the Nigerian constitution, and I dare say to a certain extent even the Indian constitution. There are common elements in those constitutions. And you must never forget that the British did yet another thing. They said that we would now belong to a body called the Commonwealth of Independent Nations, which is a post-colonial institution. And they told us that ours is a common law system. Common law. Those of you who are lawyers here, and somebody I think is the chairman of the professionals who spoke about it, among others, and I think Nabenyo also talked about it. We are proud when we are saying Lord Danning, Lord Atkin, and until a few years ago, the common man in Kenya was described as the man in the Clapham omnibus. Mtu wa kawaida wa Kenya alikuwa analinganishwa na muabiri wa basi kule Uingereza. It is Madame CJ who said that that cannot be true. The common man must be the man in the Pangani bus. But he said so because he was an Indian who grew up in Pangani in Nairobi. Had he grown up here in Turkana, he would have said the man in the goat market in Lokichar. So that is what you are asking us to talk about this morning. So our justice system is a foreign justice system. If you look at land, what is the law that governs land in this country? For a long time, we had the Indian Transfer of Property Act as the law that governed land in Kenya. We had the Government Lands Act, the Registered Titles Act, Then we had what was called the Register Land Act, was actually borrowed from Australia, the Torrens system of registration. That is how alien our land laws were. Marriage was defined as the union of one man and one woman to the exclusion of all others. Yet you and me know is that in an African setting, marriage is the union of one man and one woman to the inclusion of all others. The Muslims were a little bit more deliberate, because many did sex notwithstanding whether Sunni or Shia, except the Ismailis, they allowed up to 4. So there was an offense. Still is, if you don't marry under the proper legal regime, called bigamy. Umeoa kanisani, ukaapa ya kwamba utakuwa ni mme wa mke mmoja, alafu baada ya hapo unanyemelea unaoa mke mwingine kwa mila na desturi za Kiturkana au za Kisamburu. Ukipatikana utakiona kilichomtoa kanga manyoya. Our law in that regard was alien. Criminal law amesimulia, na amesimulia ndugu MCA yale ambayo yanaitwa makosa ya jinai, pia yalitokana na mila na desturi za wazungu. Hivyo ndivyo tulivyoridhishwa sheria hizi. And that is what became our law. Whether you are Turkana or Samburu or Luo, Mkamba or Mdigo, that is our law. We started dismembering our constitution. Tukaanza kubadilisha. Wale ambao ni wazee, mzee hapa atakumbuka, miaka ya 64 tukaanza kubomoa. Sasa tukaanza, kulikuwa na majimbo, tukaanza kubomoa. Akina Masinde Muliro, akina Ronald Ngala, wale ambao ni wazee watakumbuka, kulikuwa na wimbo ambao ilikuwa naimba, hata Muliro ni kigeugeu, alikula asali ya masharia. Hapo ni 1964. Masinde Muliro wakavuka, wakatoka Kadu wakaja Kanu. Tukabadilisha sheria. Sheria ikabadilika mpaka mwaka 1969. Tukabadilisha katiba, tukatoa Act number 5 of 1969. Ndio katiba ambayo ilikuwa sasa ilimwezesha rais kuwa kama mfalme. Na kufikia mwaka wa 82 katika uongozi wa Daniel Moi ikawa ni chama kimoja. Na mtakumbuka uchaguzi wa 88 ya mlolongo. Moi kwa njia yake alikuwa anahoji hivi. Anasema, na vitu hivi tulivyo virithi vinatufaa. Unampa mtu kura kuweka kwenye kisanduku, na ukimuuliza huyo mtu, je, ulimpigia ndugu Ekwe? Anakuambia, mimi sikumpigia ndugu Ekwe. Ukikutana naye anampigia kura, wewe ndio nilikupigia. Tukawa ni kura ni ya uongo tu. Akasema, mbona tusiwe na kura ya uwazi? Na mnakumbuka katika mlolongo line ambayo ilikuwa refu ndio ilikuwa inashindwa. Sasa na pia tukashangaa, na hii ni kitu kipi? Sasa tukawa tunasema tubadilishe katiba ili tuwe na mwamko mpya na mtazamo mpya. Ikaundwa jopo na nikashiriki pale kwa miaka isiyopungua 5. Tukatembea, tulikuja hapa kule Lodwa kwa helikopta, tunakusanya maoni ya watu. ili tuseme katika mambo haya ya haki, je, sehemu hizi za Turkana, sehemu ambazo zilikuwa zimetengwa, na amesema mwaka 1973 wako Kenya, wanakatazwa kwenda Kenya. Wanahoji sisi ni wa Kenya au ni wageni? Na vivyo hivyo tulivyokuwa tukisafiri, tukienda kule Samburu, tukienda Marsabit, tukienda Mandera, tukienda Wajir, wanasema mmetoka Kenya, na sisi tuko Kenya. Kwa mtazamo wetu, jamii iliyotengwa, tukasema tunakusanya maoni ya watu. And Kenyans spoke to us. If you go to the National Archives, we deposited the views of all the 290 constituencies. Ziko pale. Tuna maoni ambayo ilinaswa kwa video. They are recorded in cassette. They are there. I deposited them personally. Ekuru Aukot also deposited those of the experts personally at that place. Wakenya walizungumzia mambo mengi kama haki za binadamu. Wakasema maji ni muhimu. Wakasema ardhi ni muhimu. Wakasema sheria lazima ieleweke na wananchi. Tubadilishe iwe ni katiba ya Kenya inayohusisha Wakenya, na Wakenya wahamasishwe. Swali tunaloliuliza leo, je, Wakenya wanahusishwa? Hilo ndilo swali mama. Ndilo tunaloliuliza, je, Wakenya wanahusishwa? Mmeniuliza nizungumzie hili jambo la kuhakikisha kwamba sheria inaeleweka na inatawala kila mtu. Neno la Kiingereza mlioitumia ni democracy. Katika lugha ya Waturkana neno democracy mnaitaje? Democracy kwa Kiturkana, naomba mnieleze. Kuna neno la Kiturkana democracy. Kuna neno la Kiturkana kwa lugha ya Wabukusu. Kuna neno la Kikuyu democracy. Hakuna. Kile tulicho nacho ni utawala. Na ni utawala bora au utawala mbaya. Hao wenzetu ambao wanazungumzia neno democracy kutoka Uyunani wa Giriki wanajieleza. Kwa hivyo tatizo tulilo nalo, hata kama mnatulaumu hapa kama mawakili, jiulizeni tulifundishwa namna gani? Sheria zipi tulizofundishwa? Unazungumzia vizuri tu. Hakimu yuko hapa. Akiingia pale katika mahakama anavaa vipi? Na mavazi hayo yana historia gani? Mavazi hayo, kwa nini tunavaa hivyo? Miaka 63 tangu tupate uhuru, tunavaa manyoya ya farasi vichwani mwetu. Kwa nini? Ina historia. Ukienda Uingereza watakueleza tunavaa manyoya haya kwa sababu hii. Hapa Kenya ukiulizwa mnavaa manyoya kwa nini, hawatasema. Ukiulizwa mnavaa nguo nyekundu kwa sababu gani, hawatasema. Kulikuwa na mkuu wa sheria mmoja, Willy Mutunga, alikuja akabadilisha tena, tukarejea katika yale mavazi mekundu. Tunasaba hatujielewi. Mwafrika hajielewi. Na mwandishi ambaye ni wa Nigeria, Chinua Achebe, alisema katika kitabu chake Things Fall Apart, anasema mzungu alikuja akaweka kisu kwa vitu ambavyo vilikuwa vinatuunganisha, akatusambaratisha. Tumesambaratika. Hatuna mwelekeo. Hata tukiwa na sheria katiba ya mwaka 1110 bado hatuna mwelekeo. Wakati mmoja hakimu mmoja anaitwa Sultan Aganyanya, wengine watamkumbuka, ni Mtiriki, alishtakiwa kwa kushiriki vitu ambavyo viliathiri kazi yake kama hakimu. Akasema, mimi sikuchukua hongo, I did not take a bribe. And those who are claiming that I took a bribe, I want them to swear using the Tiriki oath. Sio wachana na hii Biblia. Tiriki. Kwa kuwa Tiriki ukichukua hivi ukisema uongo mara moja unaenda ahera. Lakini Biblia ukiniambia nichukue, nitachukua, na swear by the Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Hakuna. Hata katika mila na desturi za Kiturkana ukimwambia mtu aape kwa Kiturkana atatoroka. Au aseme ukweli. Kwa Wakamba ukimwambia Mkamba apa kwa Kivitu atatoroka. Lakini tuliambiwa hiyo ni ushetani na tunakubali hivyo. Tuniako ukiapa kwa Kiturkana ni ushetani. Ukiapa kwa Kiluo ni ushetani. Kwa hivyo kilichoko hata tunapozungumzia nafasi ya utatuzi wa matatizo kwa njia tofauti, kitu ambacho tunaita kwa hata sisi wasomi pia wakati mwingine tunajishangaa. Tunaambiwa alternative dispute resolution. Alternative to what? A friend of mine tells me it is not alternative, it is African dispute resolution. He told me even that is not good enough. He told me it is ancestral dispute resolution. And if you doubt me, Nabenyo and I over lunch were asking ourselves, after the genocide in Rwanda, they formed the Arusha Tribunal. The Arusha Tribunal spent money in the hundreds of millions. And you know how many cases they tried? 93. The Rwandese, wakasema, we have our own system of dispute resolution. My neighbor killed my wife and vice versa. But we must live together. Is there a dispute resolution within the Rwandese history that we can use so that we reconcile? They discovered there was, it's called Gashasha. You know how many cases Gashasha resolved? 1.9 million. And if you go to Rwanda, wale ambao waliuana wanaishi pamoja. Kuna matatizo ni kweli, lakini wanaishi pamoja. Why should I be told that Gashasha is alternative to something? Why can't it be the method of dispute resolution? Why must our systems only be about small claims? Kwa nini tunajidunisha? Why must it be about small claims? Why can't it be about big ones? Why can't it be about land? There is a case which the lawyers here will understand. It was in the Coast Province, Mulu Gwanobi, where somebody said that when the British came with their registration system and they said, but land belongs to nobody. The administrators said, yes, we know it belongs to nobody, but the Queen owns it on behalf of God. When we were doing the Constitution, we created, because the people recommended, not because we imagined, different systems of land tenure. We went to the Ogiek. Wakatuambia sisi tunaishi kwa misitu. If you give each one of us a title of half an acre, of what value is it to us? That is how we came up with the communal land ownership. Wa Ogiek own land communally. We then said, because we are also interacting with other people from Europe, America, and Asia, they may want to invest in Lodwar. Why shouldn't we have a leasehold for 25 years? Then we talked about freehold. In other words, it must never be understood that when we talk about Africa or ancestral, we are saying that Africa is shutting herself from the rest of the world. No. We are simply saying that aspects of our culture which are positive must be given their pride of place. Aspects of our culture which hold us down must be dealt with differently. Unfortunately, we in Africa, we assume that our culture is something that was frozen in time. Culture is dynamic. It keeps on changing. What the Turkana used to do in the 1700s is not necessarily what they are doing now or what they must do now. They must adapt and adopt as they interact. Because in the olden days, the Turkana possibly never met the Luo or met the Kikuyu. But you are now living in a society where you interact, they are part of you. How do you accommodate? What is wrong with polygamy? We must ask. Why can't women be lifted to participate in the affairs of the nation? There may have been a reason in the olden days why women were dealt with that way. Whatever that reason was, it is no longer valid. That is why, therefore, we are saying our dispute resolution mechanisms must be understood. You know, all societies evolve, and evolution must be for the better. Today, we talked about policing, and it's the chair who said, you have a police station here in Lodwar, the next one is possibly 100 kilometers. Even if you are angry, by the time you walk, your anger imekwisha. Because some things you need to do when you're angry. So, how do you deal with that? But let us look at the history of our policing system. How and why did the colonizer introduce policing system? It was to control and to dehumanize and to subdue. That is why police and disciplined forces in Western societies were removed from society and barracked out and given uniforms so that they are different. If you looked at the training in Kiganjo before independence, it was called a force. At Bomas of Kenya and the committee of experts, we said that we are changing the name to service. But did we change the training? We did not change the training. In Kenya, when you see a police officer on this side, you cross. When they cross, you cross. But policing should be a good thing. The police officer who is properly trained to serve the society is the one that you should ask, nimepotea naenda wapi? And if you ask Kenyan police on average, they say, ni wakupotea potea tu. Sasa umepotea. Si nyinyi ndio wezi hapa. But because that is the culture, and the culture has not changed. So you can bring all these beautiful things, you can change the law, but if you don't change the culture, then nothing is happening. My good friend here, Speaker Emeritus Ekwe Ethuro, will tell you, in the process of lawmaking, and he's traveled the world, he could very well have been sitting in the House of Lords in England. Because that is the manner in which our Senate, even today, is structured. Our Senate is a poor and weak mimicry of the American Senate. that does not take care of our culture. In South Africa, which he remembers we wanted to borrow, we said we would have a council of governors complete with traditional rulers, so that there is an infusion of culture. South Africa now has 11, I think, official languages, because culture must be given its pride of place. That is why sisi tukasema tuna makabila mengi tu, kwa hivyo tuchague Kiswahili. Today, Kiswahili is still treated as kama mtoto wa kambo. Haitumiki jinsi inavyofaa. It is you who went to Tanzania, and you saw how Tanzania has 126 ethnicities. It's the only country in Africa unatoka Mwanza na unagombea ubunge Iringa. Hebu nijaribu kuja hapa, mtaniambia mtasema kumbe wanawake wa Turkana hawazai. Si mtauliza hivyo? Ndio mtu anakuja mgeni, mtaniita mgeni. Wachana na hata hiyo ati nimetoka Ujaluoni kule nimekuja. Wacha hata hapa Turkana, utoke tu Lodwar uende hapo Lokitango. Ujaribu. So the Tanzanians did something which, and when you judge a nation like Kenya, don't judge it in 60 years, no. Judge it in hundreds of years. The mistakes we are making now may not and should not be repeated by your children and children's children. Some of you here now, your children are going to school in different parts of the world. When they come, they'll be totally different. That lady who is the chair of the Friends of Lake Turkana, she could very well be an African American woman. Her world view is totally different. Nabenyo here, your children, their world view are totally different. How are they going to interact without losing their Turkana-ness? The time is now. You also said that I should look at it across the continent of Africa. We are talking about East African integration. This is a border location. The Karamojong. You have the Murle. You have our friends from Ethiopia. In the context of integration, how do we deal? If the administration of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni issues an order affecting the Karamojong, doesn't that order affect the Turkana? If we were integrated, there would be an order that is issued from Arusha that deals with cross-border issues. It would affect the Turkana, the Teso, the Olearusha, across the border. And that is how we should be thinking. Unfortunately, those of you who are in the county assemblies in Kenya, instead of expanding our worldview, is actually fossilizing clanism in most of these counties. We are becoming narrower and narrower in our thought process. That is not what we meant. In fact, at Bomas of Kenya, we recommended 14 counties. And our idea was that there should be no ethnic purity in any county. We wanted a county where there are Luos, Kisis, Kurias, and men and women are voted on the basis of merit. Here, you go to counties, this clan has been appointed. He's only appointing his clansmen and clanswomen. How can we in the 21st century be thinking like that? Nyerere said in 1995, katika karne ya 21 mnapanda basi la makabila. Mnapanda basi la ukoo. In the 21st century, how are we going to compete with the Chinese when we are still thinking about clans? You are fighting about who owns a squirrel, and people are fighting about who owns an elephant. So even as we think about justice, and I have no doubt in my mind, and let's also be fair to the judiciary. The judiciary, to their credit, I think in the recent past has realized that going forward we cannot continue to administer justice in the manner in which we used to do. And that is why you can see a more interactive justice system. I'm told the Honorable Justice Otieno visited prison. The whole idea of visiting prison is that you want to understand, because remember, in most African societies we did not have prisons. Did you have prisons among the Turkana? Just look. You could be detained in the chief's palace, I think, or you could be ostracized. In many parts of Europe now, if you go to Norway, and I've been to prisons in the Scandinavian countries, if you are suffering, it's wise to commit a small crime in them, not saying, because life in prison is very good in Norway. The prisons are nice. You have television, and they even give you allowance. Ukiteseka nenda jela, lakini jaribu kwenda jela za kwetu hapa. You are sent to prison as a punishment and for punishment. Utateseka. So we are trying to reform the criminal justice system by having, why should somebody who has committed some of these little offenses be in prison? And that is why the probation officer was taking repeat offenders. There is no reform in prison systems. Could it be better if we had and asked ourselves amongst the Turkana, are there systems of punishment that we could borrow from the Turkana to deal with issues, say, of adultery, to deal with issues of theft, to deal with issues of buza? You know, actually, buza is not a crime, but you are supposed to be licensed. The reason why the licensing regime was introduced is because you are expected to produce buza in a hygienic environment. And because our people don't understand, we need people going out. If you know the mother of so-and-so is a known buza brewer, go and say, yes, continue your buza brewing, but we are licensing you. We want to see the sufuria that you are using, because we don't want people to be poisoned with your buza. These are things that can be done by paralegals. And somebody said something here that I think is very important as we go forward. Now, one of the biggest things, and I say this and I annoy my fellow Christians, one of the biggest industries in the world today is the Jesus industry. Unaweza ukakosa maji mahali lakini kuna kanisa, ministry fulani. We can use them positively. You tell the ministry before or after every service, the last 10 minutes must be about education and awareness. That will be a positive use. You can also tell those who are in the mosques to do the same thing, so that they are trained in that way. And today I know, for example, within the legal profession, there are those who are called Christian lawyers. What do they do? Muslim lawyers. What do they do? These are the different ways in which we are going to deal with these things. And county assemblies can also help us. Be more creative. Don't look to the national government. National government ina matatizo mengi, haina fedha. Inateseka huko na kuna wizi pia huko. So what can you do creatively here? You know, one day I go to Kigali in Rwanda for a training. Nakutana na Wakenya huko. I did not know that I was training only Kenyans. The persons who organized it was not a Kenyan. There were 300 Kenyan MCAs from different parts of Kenya. Nikauliza kwa nini mnafanya hii training? Tungetufanya Nairobi. Wakaniambia hii ni per diem. They told me. They were there for 1 week per diem. Per diem. Unampata mtu kutoka Siaya, yuko Chile, Santiago, Chile, per diem, ameenda huko ku benchmarking Chile. Mbona asiende Rwanda hapa? I'm suggesting, recently I saw one assembly visiting another in Kenya. I was very impressed. I can't just remember which one it was, but it was very impressive. You can move here from Lodwar and go to Nyamira. I'm not saying you cannot go outside. You can. But let us use the little resources we have effectively for the benefit of our people. Because if we don't, we can just end up lamenting. Yesterday, I had the fortune of visiting a place up there in Lokchab, Loropio. Amazing. Amazing. Young girls, young boys, communicating with Silicon Valley in the United States of America, communicating with Bavaria in the Federal Republic of Germany, communicating with Australia, young boys and girls. A school built that is taking care of the pastoralist life of the people of this area. A girls' school which is paperless. You go to school and what you confront is a computer. Why can't that be replicated? It can be in the justice system that we have. Many of us think that in order to administer justice, you must have a big building. I now see that one of the things that is counted as development in Kenya, in counties, is a big governor's office. We say, hiyo ni maendeleo. Even in a room like this, simple, you can administer justice. Even in a tent, you can administer justice. The magistrates here, when you are talking about that tree, you talked about the Turkana tree. Yeah. It can be done. There is a book which I want to remind, I'll finish in the next 10 minutes. There is a book which all of you must have read. It's called Things Fall Apart. Those who have not read it, at chapter 10, there is a trial. It's a quarrel between a husband and a wife. And it is the Supreme Court of a place called Umuofia. There are 9 villages of Umuofia. And what they do is that the chief of them arrives. It's called Evil Forest. He allows one side to testify, allows another side to testify, and they retire for a few minutes, then they come and write the verdict. In our justice system, a judge or a magistrate can listen to evidence, and 2 years down the line, when he has forgotten what the party said, he has not written a judgment. You hit the iron when it is hot. Our justice systems responded to our needs. But it must not stop here. It must go to the universities. What are we teaching at the universities? How are we teaching our lawyers? We must go back and look at our education system. Ukienda huko Ulaya, hao wazungu, wa China, wanaheshimu mila na desturi zao. Angalia hapa Nairobi. There are no more than 5,000 people from Denmark. there is a Danish school. Why? There are no more than 50,000 Germans in Kenya. There is a German school. There are no more than 10,000 Swedish in Kenya. There is a Swedish school. Wanafundishwa mila na desturi zao. Kuna shule ya Turkana? Hakuna. Ni kizungu. Na Mturkana hao Mwafrika akijiona sasa ameendelea sana, sasa anasema hata watoto wangu sikizi wazungumzi Kiturkana. Sasa hiyo inakuwa ni maendeleo fulani. Kwa kuwa watoto wake wazungumzi Kiturkana, hiyo ni maendeleo. Siku hizi kile ambacho wanataka kuzungumza ni Kichina. So I think one of the things that we must do sisi kama Africa, and I'm very happy that you now have, when you are narrating about what you did with the policeman, I hope that somebody was punished as a result. Or they walisikizana too. But what you did was courage. That is courage. It is, courageous men and women are the ones who change societies. But it needs education. That was a one-off. How can we have a dominant culture that allows everybody to think like that? So as I conclude, I am suggesting to us that we Africans must wake up. We are sleeping everywhere in Africa. The good things that we should be doing, whether in Uganda or Tanzania or Nigeria or South Africa, we are not doing. And in the administration of justice, I would want to see the greater implementation. And you who are in Article 43, you have started a good thing. And let it not just be a Turkana affair. No. Let Turkana be the home of it. But this is East African. This is African. You can have an equivalent of Article 43. How is it that Article 19 was created in Europe and we are quick to say Article 19? What is the equivalent of Article 43 in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights? You can word it with that. So let you not, I heard you saying tutaenda Moroto, tutaenda. That is small thinking. You must think big and recruit some of us so that we are able to work with you. And it's not lost on you that you have a gentleman who is a good man and a clever man, Dr. Kuru Aukot, with a good worldview. He's been present in different parts. You have the Honorable Judge here and good people who have retired, people like Speaker Ekwe Thuro. You have the good ladies here, the lady, and many other good people within your ranks. You have friends of goodwill here from Horizon. They can give you another perspective. I always tell people, one of the greatest things that people don't talk about, during the apartheid regime in South Africa, Robert Sobukwe was arrested in 1961 during the Sharpeville massacre. And when some white racists told him, which race you belong to, he said there is only one race, the human race. And once you come from that standpoint, your worldview changes completely. You only see the good in people and their ability to do good. So today we are here to democratize justice, although we don't have a Turkana word for democracy. But we are to democratize. Tumekuja hapa kuhakikisha kwamba neno hili limerahisishwa, ili mama ambaye hawezi kusoma anaelewa, kwa kuwa matatizo inamkumba kila mtu. Kama kuna tatizo la shamba, ukienda mbele ya hakimu ndugu Otieno, je, ataielewa vipi na ataitatua vipi kwa njia ambayo inaleta uwiano? Ukiwa na tatizo la ndoa, utaishughulikia namna gani kujua ya kwamba huyu mama aliyepigwa haombi talaka, anaomba suluhisho? Ukimwadhibu mme kwa njia ambayo itamwathiri kwa mtazamo wake, utavunja ndoa. Je, kuna njia ya kutatua matatizo haya isiyovunja ndoa? Kama kijana ameshikwa kwa kumnajisi msichana, hata si kumnajisi, amefanya ngono naye, yeye wa miaka 18, msichana amebeleghe miaka 16, utamtuma jela kwa miaka 10? Au utakuwa na njia mbadala ya kuwaelimisha? Lazima tujiulize hivyo. Wazungu hawa sasa wanapunguza umri wa hiari kushuka kutoka 18 hadi 16. Wanafanya hivyo sasa. Wazungu hawa walikuja hapa wakatuambia kwamba ngono baina na mme na mme ni haramu. Sasa wanatuambia ngono baina ya mme na mme ni haki za binadamu. Sasa tunayumbayumbishwa tu. Kwa hivyo, bila kusema mengi sana, kwa wale ambao wana uwezo wa kusoma, kuna vitu ambavyo nimeviandika. Moja tumekiandika na rafiki yangu Ogada na tumekichapisha katika jarida la kimataifa, tayari nimempa ndugu Nabenyo. Kuna moja ambayo nimeandika hususan kwa kulenga hafla hii, mtasoma. Lakini kile ambacho nasema kwa kumalizia, sote tuna kazi, sote tumekosa. Tujielimishe upya, tuwe wepesi wa kutambua ya kwamba kuna vitu ambavyo lazima tuvifanye. Tuwe wepesi wa kuelewa ya kwamba katiba lazima irutubishwe, na watu wazuri lazima wajitolee kama wahanga wa kuhakikisha kama katiba imerutubishwa. Ndugu Nabenyo, kuna roho ya aina mbili: Roho Mtakatifu na Roho Mtakakitu. Una baraka ya kwamba roho iliyokushika ni Roho Mtakatifu. Enenda usambaze roho hiyo, kuhakikisha kwamba haki za Waturkana na jamii zote zilizotengwa zimepewa kipaumbele. Katika jamii yangu nasema ni mbwa ambaye analia ndiye anayepewa chakula. Umelia, tutakupa chakula. Asanteni.
A standing ovation for Professor PLO Lumumba. Tafadhali tusimame as we clap for him. Thank you so much, Professor. Asante sana. Thank you. Asante. Wonderful. Interesting. Much to learn. And as Professor continued to elucidate much about the system, the justice system, not just here, but even abroad, and what is happening in our democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a plenary. It's a conversation between now you and the panel. A panel of two, and that is Professor Lumumba and Justice Otieno. As we invite them, we are asking you to share your questions, because we wish to ask them questions, and we asked you to jot them down so that we'll be asking them. And in a jiffy, kindly. So permit me to welcome Professor PLO Lumumba, and of course welcome Justice Otieno. Karibuni sana. Na wakati huu ni wakati wenu wa kuuliza maswali. Wakati huu ni wakati wenu wa kuuliza maswali. Asante sana. Tutaanza na mzee wetu hapa. We have a microphone? The other one.
Asante sana MC. Nataka uuliza tu, wakati wazungu walikuja hapa, walianzisha sheria na jela ambayo inatatisa wa Afrika. Na ukiwa hapa Kenya, ushikwe hapa Turkana, utafurahia ile jela unapelekwa, kwa sababu unaenda kwa saa nyingine ilikuwa hakuna choo, unabeba ndoo ya mafi. Sasa ni kama mateso mabaya zaidi. Lakini ile nauliza, uko Uingereza ama Europe inafanywa hivyo? Wakati walikuja na hiyo mambo hayo wanafanya hapa, ama majela yao ni ile unaona TV kama Scandinavia? Thank you.
Please, some more questions.
Thank you. I'm Didymus. So I wanted to raise two questions. The first one, kuna mtu alikuwa ameongelea hapa mambo ya military camp. Turkana kulikuwa kuna military camps ambayo ilitengwa kama 7. Na one ya hii military camp iko kwa hii ward ambayo mimi nimetoka, inaitwa Kokenye KDF camp. Na wakati walikuwa wanatenga hii mchanga, wananchi ambao wanaishi katika hiyo sehemu hawakuwa wamehusishwa. Na wakati walifanya ile beaconing, walifanya beaconing ya 5 km by 4 km. Na katika hiyo hali kuna wakazi waliwekwa na ile beacon ya Ministry of Defense, waliwekwa ndani. Na wao bado wanaishi ndani ya ile beacon. Sasa kusisitiza kabisa ni kwamba hawa watu ambao wanaishi hapo kuna wanalisha mifugo yao, kwa sababu ni Waturkana. So kwa wakati huu ile wakati ya